Here we are, bottom of the Smash Mountain. I would like to thank my patron supporters over at patreon.com/bsmpod for continuing to support me in what I'm doing. This is the season 3 finale of the podcast. We will be going into season 4 in the semi-near future. We're live on Twitch right now, Cypher0033. I know it's my fault, but the point is that I don't know when this is going to actually come out. It'll be a week or two as compared to my usual, I just recorded a podcast, get it out as soon as possible. But it's a very special episode nonetheless, because we have someone who has put an amazing stamp onto the canvas of Melee, contributions to the canvas of Melee. We have Samox, who created the 2 biggest pieces of documentary media for Super Smash Bros. Melee. You have the Smash Bros. Documentary that set the internet world on fire. Then you have the Metagame documentary, which you can see. It also created this really large impact on the Melee scene and the Smash scene in general, and won esports documentary of the year, or content piece of the year. Wait, it's documentary of the year, isn't it?
No, it's content piece of the year.
Content piece of the year. Okay, I didn't want to screw that up. I did, but that's okay, because the esports award, no joke, it's super, super cool. Netflix, where you at? I'm super excited to have you on, Samox. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, man. I really appreciate it. And you know, like you said, Netflix, where you at? We did beat a Netflix series for that award, so I'm pretty happy about that.
It was watching it through it. I've watched through it a couple times, Metagame specifically, and it's because I bought it on Vimeo. That's where, for those who are interested, you know, you go to eastpointpictures.com and that sort of thing. You'll see all the links that you need to, or if you go to Samox's Twitter, all that fun stuff. Smash Brothers is on YouTube. You can check that out, and you'll want to watch Metagame, so you can rent it or buy it on Vimeo. I'm a proud owner of Metagame. Watching that feels like an amazing evolution of what you originally put out with the Smash Brothers, because there is a certain amount of, I don't want to say clawing and grinding it out, but it does have that feel a little bit Smash Brothers does, where you can tell that there was a lot of conscious, I'm just gonna get this done, I'm gonna get this out there, it's beautiful, I like it, kind of an attitude behind it. And I loved the Smash Brothers. I've watched that more times than I care to admit, so I just won't 20 plus times. And so Metagame feels like felt like a great follow-up, feels like a great follow-up. So for what it is now, being that it'll be almost 2 years since it premiered in December of 2020. It's not December of 2022 just yet, but that was a year and a half ago now. Where do you feel like the legacy of it lies now that it's actually been out and in the public for a while? It's spent so much time behind the scenes and under wraps, but now that's been out there for a while, what does that feel like for you, Samox?
I mean, I think it's the legacy is that it's controversial, at least insofar as what you'll find if you look up metagame reviews. You'll find, like, you know, controversy and stuff, which, you know, I'm kind of ambivalent about. I was very struck by the amount of discourse that it sparked, but I guess I really shouldn't have been surprised. I think that between the time that the Smash Brothers came out and the time that Metagame came out, there's been a lot of kind of an influx of people on social media, things like, you know, Twitter. And so there's way more opportunity, especially in a 7-hour documentary series, for something to spark drama and something to be controversial. So I think that was sort of a different thing that I experienced with Metagame. But, you know, I really think that it's actually, like you said, it's much more polished. It's much more cohesive, I think, in a lot of ways. I don't like, it's like having, you know, your 2 kids. Like, you don't necessarily love one more than the other. I think the Smash Brothers was particularly, you know, born of a passionate, like you said, I want to get this, I'm going to make this, I'm going to get it done. You can tell I used like multiple different kinds of fonts and stuff and didn't care about like unifying that under one stylistic kind of thing. Whereas I was much more conscious of it in Metagame. I really tried to have a much more cohesive kind of narrative, an arcs where they could be. And I think to that point, I succeeded much more in Metagame. It feels more cohesive. It feels kind of like put together. but you know, like I said, it's different things. It's not love one more than the other. It's different aspects of it. So you know, it's got that artistic sort of one-upsmanship, or I guess the this thing, whatever it is. It's got a trophy. You can't see it behind my. It's right over there. Which Smash Brothers doesn't. The Smash Brothers doesn't. But so I feel like it did get more kind of recognition for what it was in that sense. But I don't know. It's hard to really kind of put it in my own perspective what its legacy is.
I'm curious about it, and I asked about it because I thought you can ask the average Melee fan or Twitter user, and they would have plenty to say about Metagame. There'd be parts of it that they liked, and there'd be parts of it that they didn't like. And I think a lot of them, if you ask them more questions about, well, what about Smash Brothers, they would say, okay, well, maybe I didn't like certain parts of that documentary either. And you start to realize, oh, there's a really heavy nostalgia thing. And so it's hard to, for someone who can get passionate about Melee, or all the Melee fans out there, I mean, I would be one of them. I watched the premiere back in December of 2020. I saw all the Twitter discourse, and I thought there are probably good reasons for this, but I feel like a lot of this is pretty heavy-handed. But I don't know. At the time, I was just someone who was following along and super excited. I didn't like have a podcast or anything, so I guess that was like sort of a small inspiration, not that it was the main driving factor. There were people in the Melee scene who I started to talk to, and they said, hey, we're really glad that even if you're not necessarily able to play or anything, like anybody who's following along this game is pretty cool. So thank you for being along for the ride. And that sort of inspired me to do the podcast stuff. But
hell yeah.
But all the discourse ended up being around the premiere of Metagame. I thought I want to do just my own little small part and try to put out good into the world. May be too strong of a sentiment, but I think it's more along the lines of, I like the idea of just being a positive voice as compared to a negative voice. That's basically just it. So
yeah, well, I think that you do a good job of that. Yeah, to be fair, I think you hit on a really important point there. You said that, like, you know, looking back, there is nostalgia glasses. I think that in the moment of when the Smash Brothers came out, there was just so much positivity about it. It's like, this is an amazing documentary. He's a genius. You know, this is the greatest thing ever. And you know, I won't poo-poo all of that. I'll definitely say, you know, I'll take a few of those. But I will say that sort of drowned out any criticism at the time. So in the same way that the controversy sort of drowned out, like, and especially in the Twitch chat, if you were there, like, you know, I think there were at one time there was like 80,000 people concurrently watching on Ludwig's stream and on the Metagame Twitch channel.
Yep.
And like that cacophony of like reacting to every little thing that, like, chat hated this or they hate that, or yeah, but then there were moments, you know, when they would, like, you know, go nuts and shit. But I think that a lot of that negativity drowned out the positivity the second time around, which it's interesting that happened.
And so I thought there's no way that Samox says, oh, I'll do stuff within the Smash community again. You had spoken in a couple of interviews, not about saying, oh, I'm going to immediately jump into the next project and it's going to be outside of Smash. I think the way that you phrased it was there are things outside of Smash that obviously capture my attention and adoration. And there are other gaming communities that I think, if a documentary or something to that effect, a content piece, if you will, is made around them, I could see myself wanting to get into that. And so between that and the initial reception, I thought, well, how do you come back from that? But I think that there has been a comeback. First of all, you're here on this podcast, which is very nice, very appreciative of that. And you also, the bigger thing, you started to see, I think, a little bit of just like a, okay, let's calm down kind of a thing. The second premiere, I feel like went a lot better, and the esports awards, all that stuff. I'm sure getting to do a little bit of a red carpet thing, winning an award that had a lot of Call of Duty people mad on Twitter for some reason. I don't know. I didn't watch the competition. I could just say the process
was robbed.
Yeah. But I could say, like, hey, Metagame is a pretty good documentary. I'd love to see something try to beat that, and it didn't. So but you got to see a little bit of a turnaround at least, or do you describe it differently?
No, I would say so. I mean, it was, I think in large part because I think people saw that I put in a good effort to like try to respond to some of the things that people brought up. And some things were, I think legitimate criticisms that I was trying to remedy with doing the Gods Respond section, which I thought was a good idea and turned out pretty fun. And getting to talk to all of them after the premiere, Mute King, Leffen, everybody, and then I getting the chance to like throw the narrative on its head, where the first thing was like everybody was like, oh, it's so hard on Leffen, and then the second time around I did this bonus episode that came from that Leffen interview that was just flipping it on its head, and we're going to make the gods the bad guys and make him the anti-hero, and sort of just kind of having fun with it, which is, again, that's the whole point. It's just fun, and to get so wrapped up in the seriousness of it. I will say that I think some of the reason that people were more sympathetic to me the second time around was because Hax had decided to do his thing and release this massive thing that essentially called me Goebbels to Leffen's Hitler or whatever. I think that engendered a sort of okay, let's kind of put things in perspective to people that maybe hadn't had that cross their mind at that point. So I think that kind of helped sort of change the narratives on things.
And what I'm curious about, this is a sharp turn, but how long have you been using those headphones?
Yeah, I'm gonna say these are fraud headphones. These are definitely made to look like they are old school, and as if what's his fuck, Guardians of the Galaxy. This is
Peter Quill, Star-Lord.
Peter Quill, some of these fake headphones. So they're like a week old.
I feel like I've seen the same ones in all of your interviews, although I'll be honest, I was watching the documentaries in preparation for this, not the Five Gods Respond and I've seen the wife interview a couple of times, and this leads me to my next question, which is that interview, I don't want to say it's very, very special. Obviously, it led to the Smash Brothers having a voice behind it that it did add so much to the Smash Brothers documentary, having wife just in the span of an hour and 30 minutes basically give you so many bits, so many bites and quotes to use. But I feel like at the time I sort of look at wife's face in between, like you saying, okay, I got to get my camera reset. It kind of does this thing where the video cuts out, sort of like, I don't want to have a casual disregard for the process that's going on. I don't want to describe it like that, but I think husband, when he started restreaming last year, or maybe it was the end of 2020, husband said, wife told me not to do an interview for the Smash Brothers documentary. He did an interview with Samox, and then I said, well, do I do one? Because Samox is kind of asking husband, will you do an interview? And wife's like going, oh, well, I don't know how legit this is. I don't know how it's going to turn out.
It was very true. He did not necessarily think that I was going to do anything with this interview. And to be fair to me, and this is something, it probably came across to him like that was a particularly unprofessional thing. Let me just paint the picture of the guy behind the camera. I did not look like this. This is, kind of professional looking for me right now, even though I did just come back from a jog. Back then, I had like a massive amount of hair. Like I had probably even, more of a beard kind of going on, like a goatee or something. I was sleeping in a car. A rental car, and like just kind of being a crazy bohemian, with no money, making this thing. So the fact that he gave me what he gave me, which was gold, chiefly because he had been writing this book. I believe what's it? Refresh my memory.
Team Ben, Life of a Pro Gamer, I believe it was something like that. He had all that stuff right up here, ready to go, just by happenstance. And so I think he was just ready to say it and give it kind of voice, and he thankfully took a chance on a dirtbag looking documentarian. That camera, the reason it rolls out like that is the 7D, which was like hot shit back then. This was 2011, 2012. It had like a capacity on the thing, so it would automatically shut off after like 10, 12 minutes of shooting. So I had to be like running the audio, doing the interview, and keeping an eye on this fucking camera that would like have this little red dot. If it goes out and you're not paying attention, and then you're
you're filming nothing essentially. So
Yes.
it was rough. Good camera though. Good camera.
Yes, I was all. I mean, as someone who was very, very young at the time, seeing Smash Brothers documentary, I'm going, well, this is better than anything I've ever seen related to Melee in my life. Not to be mean to all the stuff that came before, but I think of you as the person who sort of modernized what making something about Melee looks like. I mean, there were people who came before you, and there were people who recorded tournaments, footage, all that stuff, people who lived in the community and were part of it. But I feel like you would be the person who modernized that. Is that a fair assessment?
I'd say so. I think even Bach would say that. He's the one that I look to it for a lot of the like inspiration for like Smash specific stuff. I mean, he obviously predated me. But yeah, I think it's fair to say that there wasn't anything quite like the Smash Brothers before it came around. There was a production that never ended up getting reduced or released, and I was worried about it when I started filming. It was called Smash ! The Doc. I don't know if you knew about this, but there's this guy. Cannot remember his tag for the life of me, but it's Onisha. I don't know what it is. But he was working on this documentary, and it was very well shot. It was obviously shot on a DSLR, just like I was doing. And I was kind of like, oh fuck, I don't want to step on his toes. I don't want him to step on mine. So I remember I sent him a message or two, and then he never ended up doing anything with his project. He stopped. So years later, I got some of his footage. I asked him like, hey, can I grab some of your footage that he shot? He shot at Genesis 2. I wasn't there. So some of the footage in Metagame that you see of, say, Armada and Mango up on stage at Genesis 2, that is his from the Smash the Doc. It never got released. So apologize for my street. I don't know if you can hear it. There's a police car going by.
No, I can't. But I'm thinking specifically of Armada versus Hungrybox, where it's last stock and Hungrybox is trying to fly away as Puff, and Armada's going after him with Young Link with the desperation up B that falls 1% short. That was that shot of Hungrybox reacting to it after that, where I thought for sure that was you filming that. You're like, you're right behind the setup and you're just filming Hungrybox Armada playing that set. That would have been the other person trying to make the other content piece around Melee.
If you can find it, I haven't. Look up Smash the Doc. I'm sure it's hard to find now because the Smash Brothers become the Doc, but it's definitely still out there on YouTube. There are a few, especially from Genesis 2. I think you'll see really high quality footage. That wasn't me.
I'm thinking about how, in general, YouTube is starting to feel like a place where old footage can just immediately disappear at a moment's notice. There was a little bit of rumblings about how Prog's YouTube channel completely disappeared, and everything that was on it, there was all kinds of different stuff around Melee that just also, because of the channel disappearing, all those videos disappear, the footage disappeared. And I think about how you had challenges with Metagame trying to not only find the footage that you wanted, that you thought, wait, and I thought this was on YouTube, where is it? I need it. And then you also needed to try to find the person who actually filmed it, get their permission to use it for the documentary and everything. But I feel like that still continues today. So does the prospect of someone who wants to use older footage, does it feel like a lost cause, or does it feel like, oh, I should probably just try to get a hold of Samox. He probably knows a lot of these people.
Well, I think, to be honest, it's pretty low risk kind of stuff. The older footage that people put up there and just kind of left, I don't think that worries distributors quite as much as like the big N in the room as much. Like, if somebody shot some old footage of some tournament years ago, they've probably forgotten about it. The risk that they would then get really mad and sue you is very, very low. Although there was only one person that I contacted in my entire search, hundreds of people that I went through to get permission for various things. Only one person said no. So I think most people just don't care. But it will get harder and harder, I think, to track down people. And like you said, I think the YouTube footage, if you can and you feel so possessed, I think if you can grab footage that you particularly like, anytime you see it, just grab it off YouTube just to help save it. you're doing a service to the community, because there are some pieces of footage, some channels that just kind of disappear. It's really unfortunate. You'd think it would be preserved forever on the internet, but that's really not true.
It's not. I get nervous about the stuff that I put out. I always like make a backup and save it, so hopefully I don't get mad and delete that at some point down the line. I'm thinking about how... I'm losing my train of thought a little bit. Okay, so I'm thinking about how when you're trying to get the Smash documentary out, the first one, I feel like I don't really know so much about the part where there was, not that you said, hey, announcement, I'm going to make the documentary starting now onto Smash boards. I think you might have attended one or two tournaments with your camera and started doing stuff, and then started to say, oh wait, this is expensive to do and I am broke, so I'm going to need a little bit of help, y'all. I don't really know much about that process. I think there was something about a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter, but honestly, I couldn't really tell you much else. All of a sudden, Smash Brothers was there for me because I was definitely a casual at the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was true for a lot of people. I was, I had been introduced to the whole thing through my brother. We were living together at the time in Boston. I moved out there in 2010. And the only game we had in the house was Melee, and he was great at it, and I was, good at 64, but he was younger than me, and so he knew how to wave dash, knew all the techniques and shit, and he was beating my ass so hard. And one night I just got really pissed. I was like, "What the fuck are you doing in this game?" And so then he was like, "All right, let me show you the truth." And he opens up the door, and shows me all well, he shows me most three is what he shows me. He shows me that incredible back and forth, match, and how Isaiah and Ken were moving, and that just I knew I had just gotten this amazing camera because I was going to make music videos at the time. He was going to Berklee School of Music, and I was sort of looking to find what I wanted to do next. And his, introducing me to Melee like this, I was like, and like teaching me about just like the basics. And I hopped on and found Chillin's History of a Smasher, which was an incredible, I don't know if you've ever read it, but it's the blog post on Smashboards where he details sort of the early days of Smash, him meeting Azin, the DA rivalry, all the way up through Game Over, I believe, and maybe even to TG6 where Azin beats Captain Jack. So then that just inspired me. I was like, this is a story. This is amazing. I just seen King of Kong not like a few years ago. Before then, I was like, wow, you can make documentaries about video game players. Like, it's a thing you can do, and it can be successful. So I saw I had this amazing camera. I saw this story just immediately start forming. But it wasn't like I wasn't in the community at all. I had to convince the community essentially to join me, I guess. I made this. I don't know if it's still available right now. It's I believe it's unlisted, but I made a pilot episode to try to raise money on the Kickstarter. I only ended up raising like $4,000 out of my original like $8,000 that I wanted. So it wasn't a lot of money at all, and I bought it out with my own credit card, which is really stupid because then you end up paying taxes on your own. It's really bad. It's dumb. Never do that. But what I ended up having to do was like, I made my friends kind of sit down for this thing and pretend that they were Smashers, and just to show the quality that I could get. And then I started to get like, okay, this guy seems like he knows what he's doing. Like, let's try to help him out. And PVMD was one of the first people to hop on the bandwagon and be like, yeah, I'll give $50. And, so I kind of went from there. The first tournament I actually went to was a Brawl tournament not too long after that. I think it was 2011, late in that year. And then everything sort of just snowballed from there, just, putting everything I could on the credit card and barely, surviving month to month.
That's crazy to me that, again, like you could just feel that coming through. Not that I knew the whole story, like I said, but it is amazing to me how you could feel that coming through in the documentary itself. At the time, you had the storyline up through roughly, not exactly, but Apex 2012, maybe later on in the year, because obviously the documentary itself came out at the towards the end of 2013. But it feels like most of the footage is 2012, a little bit of Evo 2013, just at the end of the Smash Brothers documentary to sort of bookend the whole thing. But at that point, you already had Genesis 1, you already and you had Genesis 2, and I'm curious about your thought process behind saying we can end it at about the time that Brawl came out. Not that that was the exact cutoff point, because again, covered tournaments that happened afterwards, especially the Mango episode. But for me, since there's so many threads in Smash, even though there were less players overall than I would argue to say that there are now, and how everybody's posted on Twitter, everybody's streaming, and that it seems to me as if there's more top players than ever before, even if that's not 100% true. But it feels like there's just so much to keep track of and to nail down in terms of creating a coherent story. You talk about how these things came into your mind. What was the decision-making process behind saying, all right, let's maybe stop after like about 2008?
It's a good question. I think a lot of it came down to, like you said, you have to kind of find your stories. You have to find your, because you can make stories about pretty much anything. Like, people ask me why I didn't have like a Chudat specific episode, for example, even though he was, winning tournaments and stuff and up there with like the best at the time. But I just sort of, you have to kind of be judicious in figuring out what you're not going to talk about or not put in the spotlight. And some of it was just dead reckoning, being like, you know what, I think I will have enough content without continuing on into Genesis and stuff. I knew I wanted to do like after I shot there at FC Legacy, the 2012 tournament between Mango and Hungrybox, the sort of tournament that is the glue, I guess, of Mango's episode. I knew I wanted to have a very kind of specific style for that one, to kind of right before the final episode, which would be almost not even really an episode in the same sense the others are, where they have like build-ups and subplots and stuff. The last episode's much more like this is the end. The whole series is sort of wrapped up in that one. So I, Genesis 1. I also part of me I didn't like Peach. I didn't really like, and I honestly, I didn't. I was like, at the time, I was like, this is a lame character. I don't want to put the spotlight on Armada, except in the sense that he's a roadblock for Mango, to beat at the end. Yay, America. Which I did again in Metagame, but that's neither here nor there. But I think it was a little bit of that, and also just because I knew I had so much already. I'm glad I saved it, because there's a universe where I could have covered those things in the Smash Brothers, but I wouldn't have done it well. I would have been rushing it. I would have had no money left, I think, to do that. But yeah, I'm glad I didn't kind of use up all the stories.
Yes, and that's also another reason to the person who's invisibly asking, what about doubles? That's a fun question you get a lot, is like, well, I just had a lot to go with already. Also, to anybody who says, well, where's the Chudat, where's the double stuff, you could also maybe do it yourself. That kind of is a thought process, because it's true. I think about the person who dropped the Smash, the doc. There have been so many people who've probably seen your work and go, I would love to do something like that, but then they don't. It just takes so much to actually put something that's so conscious effort. It takes so much effort to do. Yeah,
it's as a solo warrior thing, like, man, it's I mean, it took me 5 years to finish Metagame, so it's insanity.
And yet you did collaborate, I feel like overall collaborate with more people for Metagame, especially because you needed help with legal stuff to be able to say, this is my work. Nobody can come forward and say, hey, you use my footage or you use my song. Let's shut down Ken's episode on YouTube forever and ever. Amen. And you so this was your own, and I know that you had people who are in the biz, if you will, who were helpful to that kind of stuff, which is very cool. And then you have people like Garrett Williamson, who's composing super awesome music. I mean, when watching through Metagame again, it was like chills for certain parts. Obviously, all the big moments. Really, I mean, Armada winning Genesis 2 and Mango winning Genesis 1 and PPMD winning Pound 4. Those are such amazing moments. And actually, for Armada's part where he's winning Genesis 2, it's the belt, it's the joy on his face. Is that Garrett Williamson there, or is that somebody else?
Yeah, big shout outs to Garrett Williamson. He's an absolutely incredible musician and composer, and you know what he, you know, I did have help. I mean, I had Alpha Zealot was my right hand man as far as like the business side of things went. We did have a law firm that we worked with, you know, where I just was going crazy. In the first one, I was just grabbing things, doing whatever I wanted. And Garrett Williamson, he put so much amazing life into those hype moments, and like that really soft song that was his sort of reinterpretation of my terrible version of it. I wrote a very bad version of that, like, you know, Armada finally wins moment, and he reinterpreted that absolutely beautifully. So yeah, that's one of my things that I always want to have. Like if a piece of work isn't making you want to like cry or yell or giving you some kind of I think the word is frisson, like the sense of chills going up the back of your spine. That's something that you should always be trying to elicit in an audience, because that's what I want when I watch something. I want to feel moved, and so Garrett was amazing at that. And the artwork too. Like this was the behind me. The poster is by Germ Reverso, who's a smasher, amazing link guy, and incredible artist. And then the 3D art was Daniel Wyatt, who did an amazing job too. So I definitely had some help this time around, which was nice.
Yes, but then when you have to communicate your vision, I've had to do this for just the artwork for my own podcast. There's much less stuff to work on. Okay, but like the new intro for season 4, which is finally done. Finally, many revisions. It's not because of me specifically entirely. My brother made the artwork, but then I asked somebody else to do the video stuff, and then my brother's like, no, it's not right. You need to change this. You need to change that. And I'm going, well, I'm the one who's heading up the project. Why are you telling me to do all of this stuff? So like you're asking somebody to make something that is ultimately going to be in your project, and you want them to feel like that it's no longer their baby, and you don't care about how they feel. But that was some lessons that I learned here in the past couple of weeks of going like, I need this to be something that I am willing to say, I'm putting this forward under my name, I guess, even though I'm not the one who made it, but like I'm kind of the one who made it. I don't know how to actually navigate this. How tricky was that for you?
Oh, that's definitely an important thing to learn whenever you're collaborating with someone, is how to kind of try to get your vision. Like this particular poster was not the original that Germ came up with. I just told him like the basics of what I wanted, and he went for it. And the version he came back with it's good, but it didn't elicit what I was looking for. It wasn't like this is exactly what I wanted. And this was the second time around. And I just kind of was like, you know what, I'm looking for something a little different. And, I was like, I'll kick you in a little more money, but I really want, And he's like, okay, we're going to get it this time. And then he fucking just nailed it. So I feel like, I don't know, artists recognize that you don't necessarily, you can't communicate exactly what your vision is directly into someone's skull. And it takes revision sometimes. And you just gotta be on the same page, I guess, with respect. And that's a big thing.
And I wanted to give a shout out real quick before we move on to the next question to Doodle Dudester and David V. Campbell chatting it up in chat. Appreciate it. Raise the Bar, Rash again, and 10 Toes Sloth. Thank you for the follows. Okay. I saw that video for your presentation of why you should nominate and also vote for Metagame on the East Point Pictures YouTube channel of different sort of things. This is what I did. Maybe you didn't notice, but this is what I did. And I'm seeing like this whole thing about how there's certain images. I don't want to describe it as rainbow coming off of like the edge of the screen, but there's just different things that you were trying to do to sort of, again, put the stamp of Samox and East Point Pictures onto Metagame. And would you say that was the sort of stuff painstakingly going through something that's 8+ hours long, and making sure that every single shot has something that's actually unique, where you freeze the frame and something's going on where you go, yes, this is what I want. I like this shot.
Yeah, I mean that's I tried to showcase exactly how small you get in trying to figure that stuff out. I think you're referring to the prism effect that I was looking for, where I wanted something that kind of elicited a little bit of a VHS effect without going full into it, because I didn't want that to be like just sort of you throw on the filter, you know,
Right.
that everybody can throw on. I wanted it to be subtle enough, but also just kind of there in the back of your mind, or just something that elicits that. And yeah, that particular video, I was aiming that for, you know, at the people that were at the esports awards, the committees and stuff, trying to also get people to vote, because it was a community vote thing, and trying to, you know, get multiple people excited about it. So I think I did an okay job of showcasing how the tiniest little things you have to pay attention to and you know, work with. But that's also the fun of it, right? Like you have this time, especially if it's all your baby. Like, this is my project, you know. That's why I got into documentary. I wasn't originally like a journalist. That's not kind of my background. I came from fiction, or you know, I made films when I was a kid, and I wanted to pursue kind of a filmmaking career in that sense. But I didn't really have any interest in documentary when I realized that you could single-handedly make a series about video game players that kind of had the same fictional or you know, narrative points that you could get in a fiction film, but it would be real. Like that kind of drove me into this, because I wanted that attempt, or that opportunity to have the minute control over everything in that project. And that is something that documentary does allow you to do, that other collaborations and like larger productions, even smaller independent productions, you don't have that same control as you do in a documentary. So.
And you've alluded to this a little bit, that even though you have more control, it just takes time, so much more time, because you're doing it after you do the like a normal job type stuff, and you have to raise funds to do the legal stuff, because legal offices love paychecks. They love that stuff. So you have to take even more time, which is why Metagame, or at least that was one of the reasons that the release of Metagame took the amount of time that it did.
Definitely added at least a year and a half, I would say.
Yeah. And so this is the question that I've always thought and I've always wanted to ask you, but how do you keep these things within yourself? Because like I said earlier, typically I record a podcast and then I go, literally 30 seconds after we're done talking and we hang up, I'm going, I need to get this out now. And so holding on to something, I had to hold on to my Pew Pew You interview from last year. I held on to that for about a month and I was going insane. I was like, oh no, it's out of date already. We talked about topical things. No, how is this going to be relevant to anybody? But it was really cool because it premiered on during an Alston Melee tournament, online tournament that they had. So it was cool. It was worth the wait. But it was so like that's the whole thing. I always thought how torturous it must have been, because of course you want people to see it, but then you also know all the things that you have to do, except that for what felt like the final stretch of what you had to do, the patching, if you will, in the summer of 2020, plus all the legal stuff of, hey, I got to use this musical piece, I got to use this video footage clip that I technically didn't originate myself, but the project itself is more or less ready to go. How did you hold on to it so excellently? Did you just show it to like one or two people allegedly? Is that, allegedly?
No, I had a focus group actually. It was, I don't know, do you ever see King of Kong?
I have not.
Highly recommend it. It's very good documentary, and it's sort of like the first of its kind, I guess. Like I said, of showing that you could do a documentary about video game players and have it be really interesting. But it's about these Donkey Kong players, Steve Wiebe and Billy Mitchell, and one of the places they go to is this place called Fun Spot, which is an arcade up in New Hampshire, and there's this amazing group of cabins right across the street from it. You can go and there's a hot tub and you have grills, and it's an awesome place. So I got a bunch of friends. We all went up to one of these cabins. During the day we'd go to arcade games and we'd watch 3 episodes of Metagame. I get their kind of responses and stuff. So I did have, the opportunity for people to watch it, and that was kind of nice, like, holding me over as far as like getting a response from anybody. I was like, oh, okay, I'm on the right track here. I'm on the right track. So I think the honest answer is I wouldn't have. I really was barely holding on at the end there, especially because of what happened with like in summer of 2020 with all the revelations and stuff. It was just like I was the day before I was talking about how I had done it. Like we're here, we got all the legal stuff out of the way. I think I look particularly happy because I'm ready to like announce it and stuff, and we're gonna do it in the next like month or so. And then like all the revelations came out, and it's like, well, now I have another fucking however long it's gonna take me to fix this shit. So yeah, that was. I mean, I'm glad it came out when it did, because otherwise I would have forever. I'd have these guys in this series that I think do not belong there. But at the same time, just like, oh my god, like really, enough on my plate. I don't need this fucking extra, insane amount of work to do. So
that makes me feel so much better, just knowing like how hard it was for you. I'm sorry that I'm like feeling better because of the pain that you went through, but it just makes me feel like I'm not the only person out there who just goes, I made something, this is cool, time to share.
I get that feeling.
I have a few Patreon questions for you from the subs. So we have Kreestab of Conduit Gaming. Shoutouts. What is Samox's relationship with Melee beyond the content/business level that most people know Samox for?
I mean, I wish I could play more. I don't have a setup I can play at my house, but there was a time where I really was like, oh, what if I filmed myself? This is, I was wondering like how I could do shoulder content for the Smash Brothers in the early days, or even just kind of include it as one of an episode. And I scrapped this idea pretty early on that I would be filming myself getting trained by local, MDVA in Boston, East Coast people, and how to be, a good Smash player. And I've learned a lot. The best I think I've ever done is took a game in pools. Which is never, that's there's plenty of Melee people, especially nowadays. Like it's like I think you alluded to this earlier. Like I do think there are way more amazing players now than there ever were back in even the golden age. I don't think there were as many players then as there are now. Yeah, I'd have to be double checked on that, but yeah, I think that's right. So my Melee kind of experience, besides like the content creation and stuff, is mostly being a scrub lord. That's what my Melee experience is.
Well, I would like to say I see you tweeting about Smash Melee big tournament moments. I see you tweeting about big Ultimate moments, by the way, which is cool.
That's true.
I mean, shout out to Ultimate. It's there to show you how much you're missing out on, kind of a thing. Yeah. I don't hate on the new Smash games enough to say, yes, I do want to do not a murder piece in my own potential documentary someday, but by the way, I thought it was hilarious. So I'm not trying to criticize you for how you put out Brawl in either documentary. Actually, I loved it so much in the Smash Brothers documentary because I said, somebody gets it, tripping sucks.
Well, I as funny as it is, I was gonna say, like, I don't think that Brawl players will believe me when I say, but I really don't hate Brawl that much. I dislike its play style in comparison to Melee, but I played Brawl before I played Melee, and I liked it. I liked it fine. It was, and I can play Ultimate now way more easily than I can play Melee. I don't have a Melee setup. I need to change that soon. Yeah, no, I definitely. It came across more harshly, I think, in the first one.
It succeeded in the job where it goes, all the Melee players are excited, and then it's like, wait, what? And most casuals don't understand because their parents buy them a Wii and there's a Smash game, and they have no conception of earlier Smash games. They go, oh wow, on the virtual console for the Wii, when I'm buying all these old style Nintendo games, what's this, Smash 64? There was a Smash game before Brawl? What? No, there were two before Brawl. And so I think that was the important thing you were trying to capture. Like the people who really enjoyed Smash, who loved 64, who loved Melee, then they get Brawl. It is a very different experience on the competitive level and trying to deepen the experience. It kind of stops almost at the surface. You're trying to tap for something and you're getting nothing. No gas, no gold, no nothing. You're just going like, what? There's nothing in here.
It's very true.
Even if the competitive scene, to Brawl's credit, did survive until Smash 4 came out. Melee helping with that, all that kind of fun stuff. I wanted to also point out that you were at a Smash Fest for the first time in a long time. I saw a post on Twitter about that, and I thought, oh, this is so special when you get to go to somebody's house, go to a homie's house, and you just have like a bunch of setups and you're just playing. Maybe you do an unofficial paper tournament kind of thing. No one do a Start GG page. We don't need to do challenge. It's just like, let's just see who the best is in the room, and we'll do however we think is best. However it goes. You got snacks, drinks, Melee. So just talk to me about that a little bit. How was that? Because you seemed like you were having a great time.
Yeah, that was awesome. Like I said in the tweet, it was the first time I've been to a fest in probably, what did I say, 5 years, maybe longer than that? I don't know. It was awesome. Literally right down the street from me, a bunch of people on the Astoria Melee scene. Ryo Beat was there. Gabe was there. Starts with a V. God damn it, he's in Metagame. Can't remember his tag. I remember his name, Gabe. But it's so awesome. That was what kind of originally captured me too about made Melee special. It's a fighting game, but it feels like a platform game, like a Mario game, and you can only play it in one place together, sitting next to your opponent. And culturally, the tournament scene kind of grew out of just going to someone's house. It wasn't an arcade sort of situation where you go to, play Street Fighter against somebody and you had to pump in quarters. You might even sleep over at their house. And so there was more of this familial friendship side to it. And that, I think, is the best part about it, or one of the best parts about it. I'm in the original Smash Doc. That's one of the reasons, the main ending points, the parts what makes you feel that little frisson in the back of your spine is, KO just saying, we were just friends, that last line, you're just like, oh God, yes, right in the heart. That's what it's about. It's like hanging out with friends and also playing sick Melee and making it look sick as fuck. So.
Yes, absolutely. No, that's what I'm saying. It's so cool that you still even now get to have that experience. I just love the idea of like Samox coming in. How's it going to go? It's been in such a long time, but then there's a part of it where as soon as you get there, everything's just sort of like you relax. You go, oh yes, of course I want to be here. This is awesome. So that's really cool. Yeah, that's really cool. And then we have some more questions. This is from Oates, who is the main person behind the Major Zine, which is something that you can read on, there's a couple of different places where you can find it, but if you look up Major Zine on Twitter, you will find that pretty quickly. So these are from Oates. Who are okay, I have to, let me add my own bit about this once I'm done asking the question. Who are the documentarians or filmmakers that inspire Samox? And I have a follow-up question to that. What's so special about Ken Burns? All I do when I watch a Ken Burns, I tried to give it a shot, Samox. I tried watching his country music documentary, excuse me. It was one of the more recent ones that Ken Burns put out. And you've talked about Ken Burns 1 or 2 times, and so I watched that country music documentary, or I got about 3 hours in or so, and I don't get it. Maybe it's because I try to go in with an open mind. I just didn't get it probably because I don't enjoy country music all that much, but it just did not feel as nearly as dynamic as maybe the stuff I'm normally used to watching. Marvel, things are exploding all the time, or the Smash documentaries. series where I'm watching something that I actually care about, I guess. Maybe that's just me, but you could talk about Ken Burns, or you can talk about the actual question, like who are the documentaries?
I'll answer both those. Those are, one of my answers to Oates' question would be, especially as it relates to my own work with Metagame and with the Smash Brothers, Ken Burns was a huge inspiration for me. Now, I will say, I haven't really finished any other Ken Burns documentaries except for the Civil War. The Civil War, to my mind, is actually his best work. I only say that because I couldn't get through a lot of his other stuff. I just didn't grab me as much. The Civil War, the subject matter, the way he covered it, it was just so interesting in how it combined a lot of different aspects of society at that time, like the women on the home front, the private on the battlefield, the commanders, the tactics. Everything was kind of woven together, especially around like Lincoln and stuff, and his conflicting motivations, and the music was great in it, which is something I kept in the back of my mind. Is like, okay, if I want to make a good documentary series, I gotta have great music. And I do love that old, the Civil War style music. So I can't speak honestly for his other work. I should maybe say specifically it's Ken Burns's The Civil War. I do think that some of his other stuff drags a little bit. Like he gets too wound up in the minutia maybe. So yeah, I will only speak for The Civil War. And if you haven't seen that one, I would say give that one a chance. I think they recently re-released it in 4K. So not a bad watch. But as far as other inspirations go, a lot of them are, like I said, I come from more the fiction side of stuff. I really love, a lot of Spielberg stuff. Like Spielberg is the master, man. Like he's as far as like filmmaking style goes, and I'm still trying to learn more and more about like what it is that I liked about his style. Like I've watched Jaws a million times. I've watched Jurassic Park a million times. Those are the big blockbusters. I think really always kind of spoke to me, and I've always wanted to sort of up my filmmaking game, I guess, in that sense. I don't know if it really comes out in my work necessarily, but those are the ones, the people that inspired me. Michael Crichton, even though he's not he's a an author, but it's the storytelling style, I think, that mostly inspires me. Recently, Stephen King. I haven't been a big Stephen King reader, and I read Pet Sematary recently, and it just like blew me away how he told his story. It's a different medium, but it's still kind of, these other mediums can really inform what you put into like any other creative medium, I feel. So yeah, I think, was that all the Oates' question? I'm sorry.
The documentarians or filmmakers that inspired you, Samox. Yeah. And I think, yes, you did cover that fairly well. And then we talked about this a little bit actually already. So you could think of something else if you don't think you have anything else to add. But what are some of the things that you learned between the first documentary and the second documentary, between Smash Brothers and Metagame, where you thought, okay, Smash Brothers, here's a lesson that I want to actively apply to my next project for Metagame, even if it wasn't necessarily called Metagame at the time where you're making it?
Yeah. Originally it was the Smash Brothers Armada. It was just going to be an extra episode. But because I raised so much money, I raised like $32,000, $25,000 after taxes. I was like, fuck, I'm just going to do another series, baby. Woo, keep this train rolling. So I, with that in mind, I sort of, I did, but the thing is, I originally went into this thinking that it would be a movie. Like I've already done a series. I want to do a different kind of project. And in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm going to, film it like I always do. And I'll have a good story, and then I'll cut it up like a movie at the end. And it took me about 8 months of editing. Like I had the first act done as a film, and I came to the terrifying conclusion that when I started to work on the second act, that it wasn't a movie. I hadn't shot a movie. Mm-hmm. I had shot another series without because I didn't put the forethought in thinking what I needed for a film to really work. I had so many different subplots, so many different things that I wanted to do, and there was no way I could get it into one film. You could like make it into maybe one movie that is not covering nearly as much. It wouldn't feel right to me. I don't think it would have worked as well. So I kind of failed to learn some lessons, I think, from Smash Brothers in certain ways, because I didn't realize that what I was doing with production needed to change. And I'm not sure exactly what I could have done necessarily to change that. I think I would have needed way more help on the production end. I would have needed more cameras at events, more like different angles on things.
Wait, extra footage?
Yeah, more footage. Honestly, like there were certain things that I just didn't have that were necessary for a film. At least in my mind, there was just no way I could make certain dramatic moments work or make sense without having the footage there. So yeah, I think it was actually the most important lesson I learned from the Smash Brothers was a failure to account for that in metagame. But I think as a series, it works great. You know, it does. I did shoot it as a series, not knowing that I was doing that. But I guess for more concrete examples of things that I did learn and want to correct, like it sounds stupid and small, but like font, having everything kind of cohesive stylistically. I didn't have a color correction idea in mind for the Smash Brothers. Like I just kind of put a LUT in, which is like, have a certain kind of color correction standard, and I just kind of let that fly, which looks fine. But I did kind of want to, I want to have a certain look, like you were talking about with the prism and stuff. I wanted to have a cohesive sort of feel, and I also did want a big climactic moment, which the Smash Brothers has a lot of those in individual episodes,
right.
But it's arguable that the last episode of the Smash Brothers is not like a climax for the whole series. Like it's not one character, that you've been or three characters you've been following for the whole time, kind of coming to a climax. I guess technically there's six, but this dot right here and that dot right there didn't get very much, as much as the other dots got. So a lot of it came down to luck. Like I didn't know what story I was going to get out of this when I was shooting Apex 2015, right? Like anyone could have won at that point. And but I knew as when PP won, and then when Leffen beat Mango, I knew I had all these amazing storylines that were going to really work together for the final. So luck is a huge part of especially documentary work in that sense.
And so we're up against it in terms of time. Just wanted to make sure you're doing all right over there.
I'm cool. You can keep rolling if you have more questions.
Basically, I wanted to ask about things as they are now within Melee. If you follow along and you are vaguely aware of the stuff that's going on with at the top, I guess, because that's the challenge, right? Because Hungrybox and Mewtwo King, what big events did they win? Maybe there's a Apex 2010. Maybe there is a Paragon 2015 for Hungrybox specifically, and honestly I'm having a very hard time thinking of what specific event did Mewtwo King win within that time that you could have possibly covered but you didn't. But like that's the whole thing, right? For this year so far in 2022, Zane has won Genesis 8 and Pound, and then IBDW won Smash Summit 13, and then Leffen came out of nowhere with a controller he barely used, just starting on that weekend, pulling out Fox and Sheik specifically for the Marth matchup, specifically for Zane, and taking that event. So it's been a really cool year so far. Oh, and then CEO, sorry, a little bit smaller, but shout outs to Plup. Let's go, Plup.
Yeah,
and so
Plup.
Yes, you're getting a lot of amazing stories. I think about how Mango used to be the person who burst into the scene, and then there were players like Plup or Zane or IBDW, and now most recently J-Mook, who had been playing Melee for a very long time, and for some odd reason said, you know what, I'll just save it. I'm not gonna make an ultra big splash until Genesis 8, where I will casually get second place, including a 3-0 of IBDW and losers, which was insane. So you have there are all kinds of storylines that to me are very, very cool, very interesting. I love following along, and I would just be totally lost in regards to making a documentary about it. So what I do instead is I just talk about it a couple times a week on a podcast, and I just leave it at that. So it's not about whether or not you're going to make another documentary in Melee. That's not really the question. It's just more of like, what's been the most interesting storyline to you, Samox?
Making the Smash Brothers today or Metagame today, I think would be a lot harder. In both of those situations, I did have sort of a lot of history behind me, right? Like I had pretty much everything up to when I was, and then I put all those kind of historical episodes together and then have the forward ones, or the ones that were kind of happening at the time. And Metagame also similarly, there was a lot of history there running up to the time where it was like a concurrent thing, and I was going to Apex 2015, all that kind of stuff. I think the podcast method probably is the best way to do it, just to keep current and stuff. In a lot of ways, I think it is. It's a really good kind of way to construct stuff, especially when it comes to sports generally. I think that's probably the best way to do it. But if I had to kind of take my stab at the most interesting storylines, I do love the like Mango's like one of the old men of the community now, but he's still near the top. He still has what it takes to go toe to toe with Zayn. Zayn is trying to cement his legacy, as and also just show his dominance, as I think it is. Like you pointed out, like we're in an era where I told this to Mewtwo King. He had no idea what I was talking about when I said it. But I said we're in like sort of like the chaos era or whatever. It's always fun to kind of like qualify the eras that you're in. The golden age, the platinum age, the dark ages, between them, those two. And then after the slippy era, and I think I've used the kind of catch-all chaos era to describe what we've seen since the Five Gods era, because it's hard to kind of pin down. There's no one Ken or Armada or I don't know. I feel like HBox has kind of, cooled. Obviously, he had his period where he was like at the top. We kind of went back and forth where there were different, floaties kind of putting a stranglehold on things. But even then, it's hard to describe like what the era, give it its terminology. That there was the most, I want to say the most tournaments ever in that time period, or at least the biggest payouts. I guess that was Platinum era. A lot of that was Platinum era. I don't know. It's hard. It's a chaotic thing, and I am kind of glad that I'm not having to come up with storylines for this particular era. Living in it. I can imagine it'd be tough, but people like Turn Down for Walt or the Alston Melee guys or you trying to put together interesting storylines and stuff. I think that's what continually makes it interesting. It's the current stuff, everything that's kind of coming out right now. I think that puts a really interesting spin on it. So
I must say, for my favorite part is that the backdrop of Mango Zayn, anytime that happens, Melee history gets rewritten, but will we get to see it? And the fun question of saying, will we get to see it? That's when all the other things start to pour in, and you can talk about Leffen, or you could talk about Jmook. You could talk about players that have seen a lot of success and then have seen a lot of dips this year, like IBDW, where in his own region doesn't win like a regional size event. I'm referring to the Function 2, sorry. I was gonna call it something else that was totally wrong, like the Nightclub 2. That is so wrong. And by the way, you were at a nightclub sometime this year. Shout outs. Commentating with Walt. Saw that. That was cool.
That's fun.
Samus and Fox, that blew my mind. That's where your tag came from. I was like, I'm an idiot. So that was cool. That was cool. But you have IBDW, you have Kadoran, who's getting really close. It's like the second best Marth, but then it's hard to get past all the Sheiks that are rising up, and you have players like Lod who are casually top 10ing in terms of rankings and then are going to disappear for a while again, like Lod has done in the past. And these are just so many names to keep track of. So I love that you mentioned the Mango part of all of this, where for Mango finishing outside of top 8 for Genesis 8 was a shock to so many people, and I'm sure that was really surprising to you as well. Just the fact that it was Hungrybox versus Mango just to get into loser side of top 8 is a wild concept. Then it's the classic barn burner where it truly is. It's like watching a car crash in fast motion, because Mango is totally uninterested in playing, and you could tell it's the fastest 3-0 of all time in Hungrybox's favor. But then again,
was that really a fastest 3-0?
No,
at least in their,
sorry. It was just like, to me, I think that the tournament VOD of it, the YouTube upload, has got to be like 7 or 8 minutes at the most. It felt so quick. Like watching it live, I looked up and Mango was already down 2 stocks in the first match or something. I'm going, well, I'm kind of getting the impression of a 3-0, but you never know. It was a 3-0 in Hungrybox's favor.
It was a dominant 3-0, and you could definitely tell it wasn't he was just not in it at all.
Right.
So.
Right. But then again, the possibility that Mango just has to again go into Neo mode. I love this thing that he does with Scar after Big House 4 is still one of my favorite bits, and you included it more than once. As I feel like that's a great moment in that particular little moment in Melee history where Mango just says the truth, which is, I could still go on a run and win, and I could beat everybody, and it doesn't matter how good everybody's gotten. It doesn't matter how much the game is modernized. It doesn't matter about Slippy. I could still just win a tournament, and that is so cool. And I can win a tournament over the game's most dominant player. We're talking about Zane trying to imitate an Armada streak where Armada started to win and people said, all right, Armada finally won an event. He finally won several events. Why is he winning everything now? Like everybody's looking at Zane and saying Zane is trying to do that now. He's trying to go from, oh, Zane won a major. That's cool. He's won several majors. That's cool. But we haven't seen that turn. So that is the Mango versus Zane thing is, I feel like that's the top storyline. That sort of trickles down to everybody else, and I think it's really, really cool because obviously Zane he's not as old school as Mango, but Zane's been playing for a long time and thwarting players who are quote unquote up and coming. So it's really cool just to see everything clashing together. And when you have Leffen just coming out of nowhere and winning the Battle BC4, which was the most recent big tournament in my mind. I'm so sorry to CEO 2022. I'm sorry. Just a little bit smaller. It's okay. You'll get him next time. And then the way that I would think of it is what makes it even more strange, and this is Melee to a key in terms of how it relates with Nintendo, is there are 2 circuits happening right now. There's the North American Panda Cup circuit, then there's the worldwide Smash World Tour circuit. They both culminate at the finals in December, back-to-back weekends. This is going to be the weirdest thing of all time to me. It's going to feel very weird in December, and Mango hates it, of course, because that's his birthday month and he's just supposed to have the whole month off, and it's so fun. It's so fun. So I'm just interested from your perspective is the fact that there are 2 circuits trying to happen right now, and we're seeing them go at the same time. No one's trying to cancel the other because one is in the right legally speaking and the other is not. That's not what I'm necessarily asking about. But like, what do you think about the fact that Melee went from being in a dark age or a time where Nintendo tried to ignore the community more or less to now it being like they're sort of here and doing stuff mainly through Panda, and we're also still trying to do our own thing. We're trying to hold on to the grassroots feel. That's what it feels like to me right now, that there is like this, we're trying to hold on to how we've always and want to be continually grassroots.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, we'll never get away from that entirely. There's always going to be Smash Fest. There's always going to be little like local tournaments. So no matter how high the ceiling is, I think there's always a floor for Melee. And as far as grassroots go, I think it's, the more the merrier. We had the summer of Smash. I think in 2014, there was some people saying it was like almost Armada versus Mango for fatigue. Like there were too many tournaments happening. It was like burning out on what it was. And that's, I think whenever that does happen, it's just like, it's like nature, it's like an ecosystem. If it ends up happening where there's just too many tournaments this year with both of the circuits going on, I think next year there'll just be less. They'll be differently timed. So, I am never worried for Melee as far as the grassroots go, and I think it's just a good thing, to have both of them out there. Actually, I think it's a great thing to have multiple kind of circuits. It's more Melee for me to watch, so I'm selfishly just kind of happy about that.
I've gotten to watch some amazing online events with Slippy. I've gotten to watch a lot of amazing online events in the past 2 years, thanks to Slippy. Shout outs to Fizzy for making that, of course. And now we're all very excited about getting back to it as safely as possible, of course, with the pandemic still being a thing, even if it's, I guess, maybe like in the background. In a storytelling sense, that's its own character as well. But just like right now, we're able to have events for the most part safely, and then you can have all these things come back. You can have Gommel come back, you can have Shine come back, Genesis 8 having already happened, and hopefully there'll be a Genesis 9 sometime in the next year. You can have all these different events. And so for anybody who says that they think that there's a lot of events happening and that might not be such a great thing, I think the only reason why it wouldn't be is because in terms of COVID breakouts, you don't want someone who is in one side of the country on one weekend going to the other side of the country the next weekend, possibly having, incubating the virus. That would be my concern. But in terms of content, it's like, I don't care nearly as much about football as I used to. After the Eagles won the Super Bowl, I was like, oh, I finally don't have to angst over this team as much as I used to, because we finally won the big one. Finally. But for that latched onto Melee instead. And so I love the fact that most weekends there's something big happening and I get to talk about it on the podcast. It's super fun.
Yeah, man.
Super happy to have all this Melee. And so to get in the direction of closing up, I guess I'll ask, are there any events that you are trying to attend as a spectator? My favorite example of someone attending just to spectate, just to hang out, no strings attached, is Pew Pew U. After having such an intense, especially doubles career, but also singles career, just seeing him tweet about, oh, it was so great to go to Genesis 8 as a spectator, instead of having the pressure of, oh, I got to win the doubles event, I want to do well in singles and that kind of stuff. Shout outs to Pew Pew U. But for you, are you going to be trying to attend anything this year?
Maybe. It depends. Depends on my schedule. I have a lot of plans, I guess, for my next steps. I really do want to go to a tournament and play. I feel like I want to get a little bit better, though, at Melee before I go back to a tournament scene, because I feel like, if I have a practice setup at home, which I feel like is within the realm of possibility to make that happen in my life, I'll be feeling comfortable kind of going in to do some money matches and stuff. Like, I don't know. I want that aspect. I don't want to just go as a spectator, because I always go as just a spectator. I've always gone as just someone who's filming stuff.
Yeah, but you're still doing stuff. Like, I went to Pound and I did interviews while I was there, and I played and I tried to be a spectator all in the same weekend, and it was a lot to handle. It was like at times I'd feel guilty about not doing more content, because you're supposed to do content.
Yeah, well, I mean, my interest right now is not doing Melee content necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily leave my camera behind, but that wouldn't be my main reason for going.
Sure, exactly. To play and to chill, hang out.
To play and sell merch and sign shit and like yell and scream and get degenerate, and it would be awesome. I think, but I want to prepare a little bit. So I don't have any hard answers, especially because some of my future plans right now are kind of up in the air. And I also, I'm not at the, there's just a million things going on with me right now. So when I do know, I'm going to tweet about it, because that is something that I would like to do, is like bring copies of Metagame. I have extra copies, the DVD. So I do want to like hand them out to people. And, I think it would be just awesome just to have like shirts and shit, kind of be like a vagabond selling my gear.
Wouldn't be the first time, probably, if I had to guess. Just to do a little bit of a hustle thing at a tournament. Well, open extension open invite extent. Oh, forget it. I'm going to the Big House in October. It'd be cool to see you at an event like that. Big
Big
event.
House is one of my faves of all time. I mean, you know, from
Big House 4.
Big House 4, baby. That's what it's about.
By the way, I forgot to ask this question earlier. This can be quick. I feel like you must have been so mad watching these movies come out between 2015 and 2020, where they're all like jumping around in terms of the timeline, and you're going, I'm the one who's innovating that. I'm the one who's jumping around a lot of my project, and no one's going to see this, and they're going to think I'm copying all these movies, and that's not true.
Well, I won't say that wasn't worrying me too much, because I did, you know, there's a lot of movies that do that.
That's true. That's true.
Predate a lot of that. But I was sort of like, well, I was in the back of my mind. I was like, I want this to come out because, you know, it was essentially done. Editing was pretty much done in 2018. It was the legal crap and then the fucking 2020 summer stuff that pushed it back another 2 years. So I just wanted it to be out there because it was getting to a point after like the 4-year mark. I was like, this is becoming ancient history now, like, you know, in terms of Melee, which is not necessarily, you know, it's not necessarily bad because, hell, the original the Smash Doc, it was years before, like in 2003, 2004, that it was still engaging as long as the story is interesting. It doesn't have to be right, you know, from yesterday. But, you know, that was in the back of my mind for sure. Well, I was sitting there just kind of like, fuck, come on, let's hurry up.
So, and then who is your favorite player to watch right now?
Oh, you know, that changes all the time. I will say it is dependent a lot on what new shit people are showing. And because he showed me new stuff at Genesis 8, every time I watch J-Mook's Sheik, I'm just like, oh, fuck. But yeah, I'd say J-Mook, actually. I'm really interested in seeing how he kind of evolves his character. It made me look at Sheik in a whole new way. I knew Sheik could be sick, but not that sick. That's pretty dope. That's pretty fucking dope.
Yep, the Sheik train is all the way back. We're back to the first tier list where we're like, right? Is Sheik like the best character in the game? Like,
it's inevitable. It is inevitable.
That's what's awesome about Melee.
Time's a flat circle, dude. Time's a flat circle.
So where can the people find you, Samox? That's how we'll close up. Where can they find you? Where can they find the documentaries?
I mean, the documentary, the OG one, the Smash Brothers, is on YouTube. Easy to find. Just put in the Smash Doc. Episode 4 has now been freed from internet jail. It used to be unavailable, but now it's out and about. I don't know why, but now you can watch it again in the US. Our metagame you can find on Vimeo, and you can just find that through my website or go to Vimeo. And if you want to keep up with what I'm doing, my doings I'm on Twitter. I think it's on the overlay somewhere.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, that's where you'll hear all the latest Samox news. @_Samox_. And there's also a Patreon where if you have some kind of platinum, some kind of Platinum Express credit card to be like and behind the scenes of the Illuminati, something, or you could just be a Smash homie, you know. Smash homie. Anyone that throws money at me is a Smash homie. That's for sure.
Be featured on the credits of whatever project comes down the line, if it's going to be a year from now or several years from now. I love the idea that something else will be from Samox in the future, whenever that happens to be. So no pressure. You had so much pressure with Metagame. I'm sure in many ways that's just like, we'll just let that feeling, we'll forget that feeling a little bit. It's like having kids. When you first have a child and they're keeping you awake all night, you go, how could I have another one of these? But then you start to forget after a while and you go, what's the harm? What's the harm?
You forget the trauma. You forget the trauma. And that's an important part of life. Forget the bad stuff so that you can go and do it again.
and enjoy also the good that it does mostly, for the most part, come out of it. So
exactly.
Thank you so much, Samox, for joining me on Bottom of Smash Mountain. I really appreciate it.
Cheers, man. It's been great talking with you, and I'd love to come back and talk again sometime in the future.
Appreciate it.